So, what should come first? Facts or feelings? Hi, and welcome to Faith in Front. It's been a couple of weeks since I've been able to jump on and try to be of encouragement. Just got busy with work. Some of you know I work in the television industry, so there was just a lot of national news stories going on that just had me just going. It was hard to break away to get a video up, and so it's good to be back. And what I found interesting, I was actually, one of the reasons I was out, I was in Kansas City for a week covering the unfortunate story of the young African-American man who mistakenly went to the wrong address, and he ended up being shot. Thankfully, he's okay, and so we're thankfully that for God's grace in that. But one of the things that I found interesting was how quickly the motive was brought out, and the motive was that this was motivated by racism. And I started thinking about this train illustration that I used to see as a young Christian, and I'm looking at it now, and the front car, the engine says fact, and then the middle car says faith, and then the caboose is feelings. And that makes sense because I know we talk about keeping our faith in front, but it does make sense for faith to be the middle car, because if your faith is rooted in something untrue, then what good is your faith? Your faith is really only as good as the object that you put your faith in. So if your faith is not rooted in some truth, then what good is it? And then, of course, we see that the feelings, it should be the caboose. But what I find interesting is that we're in a culture where it's been reversed. For a lot of people, the front car is their feelings. Because I found it interesting that people quickly went with how they felt. We're living in a time where any interaction that goes negative between a black and a white person automatically gets labeled racist. And if we're really concerned about the truth, we shouldn't be so quick to jump to that conclusion. But racism is stoked in this country. It's kept at a high, it just gets stoked and stoked and stoked. So everyone is just uptight. And I've even been guilty of it. I can remember, working for someone and they said and did some things to me, and I just instantly, they're racist. No. Then I watch how this person interacted with other people, and I was like, oh, they're like that with everybody. So I was sensitive, but we're kind of kept sensitive about racism and things like that in this country, to where now you have this situation where this young African-American young man goes to the wrong door, 84-year-old white man shoots him, and it's automatically made, it's racist. Now, let me say this. You're entitled to how you feel. If because some things can happen and it will evoke a certain feeling in us. But as Christians, what we have to be mindful of is to say, but wait a minute, is what I'm feeling true? Is it true? Because you can have all kinds of feelings. I mean, sometimes we're afraid when we shouldn't be afraid, right? I can remember my former pastor, Pastor Walker, saying, that's what fear is, false evidence appearing real. That's what fear is. Sometimes we're fearful about things, but what we're fearful about is not rooted in facts. But that's how feelings can be. And so even when we come to things like this, where we have this situation that happened in Kansas, unfortunate situation, definitely, but it was quickly labeled, this is racism. And as Christians, I'm talking to Christians, we have to be slow before we start labeling things, before we start making our feelings the front car, instead of keeping our feelings the caboose. Okay? But we do. And because what happens when you make feelings the front car, then if faith is in the middle, then your feelings are impacting your faith. And your feelings shouldn't be impacting your faith. Only the fact of what God says. God is no respecter of persons. Okay? We're all even at the foot of the cross. Everybody. So we need to be slow before we start making our feelings facts. Because sometimes they could be true. Sometimes your feelings will align up with the facts. But we're living in a culture where people don't want to wait to see if that's true. No one looked into this older man or did something to say, well, can we really come out and say he's racist, that what he did was motivated by race? No, we just went with it. The same thing with George Floyd. Terrible thing that happened. Okay, terrible. You know, we can say that. We can say it was terrible. We can say it's wrong. It was wrong what happened. But was it rooted in racism? I don't know. That's the only honest answer I can give. I don't know if that officers, sometimes, you know, I've had interactions with cops and they're black, white, whatever. And I've had negative interactions with black, white cops. And a lot of times it seems like it was just a power trip. It really wasn't. The negative interaction was a power trip, not so much racism. But we're in a culture now that sits back and waits to label something racist. It just, and if you're looking for a racist under every rock, then you will find one. Now, here's the thing. The reason why this is dangerous is because when we make everything racist, we give the real racist somewhere to hide. Now, what do I mean by that? If you make everything about racism, people will be so saturated with it to where we'll be so saturated with that's racist, that's racist, that's racist. People will stop caring. And then when the real racism does happen, it's like the boy who cried wolf. He lied so many times that when the truth came out, it was like, so we have to be careful. And more than that is that if we are Christians, okay, John 14:6, Jesus says that he's the way, the truth, and the light. No man comes to the Father but through him. God is truth. God is the standard of truth. And when we allow our feelings to be the front car and lead everything, we're really operating outside of God's will. We're really operating against God. Whenever we operate against truth, even if our feelings are saying it. That's why God says we shouldn't be afraid a lot of times, because you're operating against the truth of what's going on. But a lot of times our feelings will take over. And so we have to ask ourselves as Christians, are we willing to submit our feelings to the truth of God? You can feel whatever way you feel. And yes, some feelings you don't even choose them. They just arise. They just kind of rise up in you. But what you have to ask yourself as a Christian, are you willing to submit your feelings to the truth of God? Because there's a lot of things going on that they're just not cool. That same week, a white young lady went to the wrong driveway. She was killed. Okay. The young African-American young man, he was injured. This young lady was killed. But why is it that the incident with the 84-year-old white man and the young African-American man, it gets a whole week of national coverage? The white young lady who's killed for going to the wrong place, gets a mention. You have to say, wait a minute, something's not right with that. We can't fall into the culture's selective outrage, because to the Christian, for the Christian, wrong is wrong. God is no respecter of persons, and we should have that same outlook. So, just wanted to share this. I hope it's encouraged you. I know some people are going to be mad anyway, but I can't worry about that. I have to stand on what God is putting on my heart. We have to stand for truth no matter what. Why? Because we want to keep our faith in front.